I'm making my Yogurty marinated chicken skewers, which are colorful and bright, and super juicy, and we'll get some great smoky char from the cast iron. To start, I'm assembling my skewers. I love skewers because you do all the hard work ahead of time, and all that's left to do before eating is throw them onto a grill pan. And food on sticks always has an edge over food that's not on the stick. I've got chicken breast and some colorful veggies. I've got a red onion, zucchini, and a pepper. And I've chopped the veggies on the chunkier side so that they cook at the same rate as the chicken. Okay, I'll wash up and make my marinade. I always have Greek yogurt on hand. And it lends a great tanginess to the chicken, but it's also not so acidic that you have to worry about over marinating the meat and getting it chewy. I'll squeeze in the juice of a lemon, drizzle in some olive oil, a little bit of honey to balance out that lemon, and also it'll help get some color onto the skewers. I'll season with 1 teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of cumin and a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne for heat. I'll chop up some garlic. This marinade is great because it'll serve double duty as the marinade and also as a finishing sauce. Just really tasty and bright and also creamy at the same time. What could be better? And lastly, some fresh parsley and mint. This is definitely a sunny chicken skewer. Okay, now I'll mix this up to combine. Okay, this is all mixed up and ready to go onto the skewers. First, I want to season the skewers with some salt to make sure they are thoroughly seasoned. I'll pour on most of my marinade, but I'll reserve about a cup of it to use later on after they've grilled. Okay, smush them around to get them evenly coated. One step closer to tastiness, I'll let these marinate for an hour in the fridge. Dinner's almost ready. I've got my Minnesota cold weather grill fired up. My chicken skewers have been bathing in yogurt and lemon and mint, and now they're ready to get a charred shell. They've come to room temperature, which is really important to promote even cooking throughout. We'll just get these on here. Ready for it. That sizzle is how I know I'm going to get those gorgeous char marks. These will cook for 10 to 12 minutes, rotating occasionally on medium-high until they're charred all over. And it's smelling like an outdoor grill party in here. I'll flip the chicken skewers. Oh yeah, that's good. 10 out of 10. Woo. Oh man, look at these char marks. Okay. I'll rotate the chicken again. You know what's fun about grilling inside is you don't have to go outside. You don't have to worry about being cold. Now I'll plate up my chicken skewers. Check out the char on that. I'll pile these on. Oh yeah, I love the earthy colors of the zucchini and the onion. Dun, da, da, da. Those are some stunning skewers. It's time to eat.
Nick and I are having a tropical game night with all of our friends to let loose on the farm. It's a no-brainer to make macaroni salad, which is loved by both Midwesterners and Hawaiians. Mine is creamy and comforting and has soft noodles and crunchy celery. To get started, I have a pot of boiling water that I'm salting. And don't hold back with the salt here. You don't want a flavorless noodle. And then I'll add a pound of macaroni noodles. And I'm gonna cook these for about 2 minutes more than what the package says because I want them to be extra soft. While these boil, I'll make my dressing. My mac salad has to have a mayonnaise-based dressing. You could go another route, but I don't want to disappoint anyone. I'm gonna start with 2 1/4 cups of mayonnaise. I'll get this right into my big bowl. I'll add a 1/4 cup of whole milk to thin it out. And then 2 tablespoons of sugar to amp up the sweetness. I appreciate a sweet enough macaroni salad. And I'll mix this to combine. This is a lot of dressing, but you want a thick coating on the noodles. The dressing is really smooth. I'm gonna check on my noodles. I'll drain these. I'm gonna drizzle on a few tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. This will add necessary acidity to the salad, and while the noodles are still hot, they'll be able to absorb that vinegar more easily. My noodles have had a chance to cool, so now it's time to put this macaroni salad together. One secret that adds a lot of flavor to macaroni salad is grated onion. I'm gonna use the big holes of the box grater to grate this right in. And I'm gonna hold it over the bowl so that both the juices and the pieces of onions make it in. I'll add some shredded carrots for color and sweetness, chopped celery for a little crunch, and then I'll thinly slice my scallions on a bias to make it extra pretty. And now I'll fold in my noodles. I'll season with salt and pepper, and fold everything together to thoroughly combine. Can't wait to eat this. This macaroni salad is looking extra creamy. I am going to taste it. That is perfectly balanced. The sweetness of the onion and the sugar in there, and the acidity from the apple cider vinegar is great, and I love the crunch from the vegetables. Okay, I just have to plate this up. Oh yeah. For a pop of color, I'll sprinkle on my reserved scallion greens. Now this will go in the refrigerator until party time. Fingers crossed I don't eat it all before my guests get here. I'm getting ahead by prepping my fluffy baked challah French toast. I'll start by making my custard. I'm gonna crack 8 eggs into this big bowl. Next, I'm gonna add a 1.5 cups of whole milk. It is milk up here, M-E-L-K. My favorite part about this baked French toast is the ricotta in this mixture. It adds a freshness and a really beautiful subtle sweetness. Now I'll add some vanilla extract, then just a pinch of salt, which will amp up all of my flavors. Ricotta always needs salt because it's so mild. Lastly, I'm gonna add some lemon zest. It's gonna add the perfect hint of tartness. Now I'll just whisk this together. It might still be a little grainy from the ricotta, but that's okay. This looks smooth and creamy, it's perfect. Now I'm gonna spice up some brown sugar, which is gonna go between the layers of the challah, and when it gets baked in the oven, it's gonna get caramelly. I'm starting with 6 tablespoons of brown sugar, and I'm gonna spice it up with some cinnamon and nutmeg and cardamom. And a little cardamom goes a long way, so I'm just adding a good pinch of that. And now some nutmeg. Nutmeg is woodsy and cozy. Now I'm ready to assemble. I have my egg mixture, my brown sugar mixture, and my challah. And that is going to soak right into my bread. And any leftover brown sugar, I'm gonna sprinkle on top down the middle. And now I'll cover this in foil and put it in the fridge for a little beauty sleep while it soaks up all that goodness. And then tomorrow morning, I'll bake it. So I'll put my French toast in the oven covered at 350 degrees for 30 minutes, and then remove the foil and let it cook for 15 more minutes. My challah baked French toast is looking great. Now I'm gonna top it with some blueberries. I've just heated up some frozen blueberries and they've released their juices, so they make almost like a really pretty sauce. I'm gonna add half a lemon. It'll add some nice tartness. And I'm just gonna spoon this over the top. I love the way the blueberries fall down into the folds. And I'm gonna dust the top with powdered sugar. Yum. I'm making my Pao Chicken. It's nutty and a little spicy, and it comes together really quickly. To start, I'm gonna do a quick marinade with my chicken. I have 1.5 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thigh here that's been chopped into bite-sized pieces. For the marinade, I'm gonna combine 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, and ultimately, this is gonna thicken the sauce and make it nice and glossy. A tablespoon of soy sauce, and then a tablespoon of rice vinegar. And the acidity from the vinegar is gonna tenderize the meat. I'll whisk this together, and then pour it right over the chicken. I'll give it a toss, and I'll just let it sit aside while I put together my stir-fry sauce. This sauce is really flavorful. It's pretty salty, which I love, and it's super simple. I'm gonna do 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar, 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce, which is sweet and a little fermenty. It's one of my favorite ingredients. A teaspoon of sugar, and then I'll grate in 2 cloves of garlic, and I'll grate in my ginger, then I'll add some citrusy notes. Beautiful. I'll whisk this together. My sauce and my chicken are prepped. I'll get going on my veggies now. I like to get all of my veggie chopping out of the way before I start cooking because with stir fry, once things hit the pan, they go fast. I'm gonna chop up a red bell pepper. I'll get some nice 1-inch pieces. That's a lot of nice color. Some green beans. I'll cut these into thirds. And some scallions. I'll add most of them to the veggies, but I'm gonna reserve some of the greens to garnish on top. And I'm cutting it on a bias because we're getting fancy. And that's it. Everything's prepped now. I'm gonna get cooking. I'll add 2 tablespoons of oil to my big skillet, and it's a hot skillet. It's what you need for stir fry. And then I'll add my chicken. It's Christmas Eve, and I'm so excited. We are carrying on our time-honored tradition of feasting on Chinese food to celebrate. I'm ready to add my veggies. I'll dump all of them right in. I'll cook the veggies until they're crisp tender, just a few minutes, and then I'll grab my peanuts and Szechuan peppercorns. Szechuan peppercorn is fragrant and a little lemony, and I can always tell that I'm eating something with it in it because it makes your mouth kind of tingly in a really cool way. I'm gonna add 1/2 teaspoon. If you don't have this, you can leave it out or add loads of black pepper. And then 1/2 cup of roasted peanuts, which are signature Kung Pao. They add that delicious, crunchy nuttiness. And then a couple of dried red chili peppers for heat. This is looking delicious. I'm gonna add the sauce now and just simmer it until it thickens. Oh, this smells so good. I'm gonna plate it up. Oh my gosh, I'm getting so hungry. I'm gonna garnish it with some scallions and a few more crunchy peanuts. Okay, I'm gonna taste. I'm really getting that ginger. This is so flavorful. Yum. I'm making one of our favorite recipes, pumpkin pie, which is rich and custardy and has incredible depth of flavor because I make a cooked filling and then I put it into a pie crust and bake and decorate with fresh whipped cream. So to start, I'll take my 1 can of pumpkin and I'm gonna add it to a saucepan. I'm gonna add 1/3 cup each of granulated sugar and brown sugar, and 1/4 cup of maple syrup for my 3rd type of sugar, and that's just gonna mean more dimension of flavor. I'll season with a teaspoon of salt, and now I'm gonna cook this stirring until it's glossy and thickened, and that's gonna allow the sugars to melt and caramelize. This is smelling really good. I'm gonna grab my heavy cream and milk. I'll add 3/4 cup of each of these. And one thing that I find so uniquely delicious about this pie is that you can actually taste the milky richness of it. And I'm using the combo so that it's really rich, but not overly rich. I'm gonna switch to a whisk now so I can whisk it all in. And now I'm just gonna heat this until the milk gets steamy. I don't wanna bring it to a boil and scald the milk. This is looking so creamy already. As this heats up, I'm gonna crack in my eggs. I've got 3 whole eggs and 2 egg yolks for added richness. So now anytime you want to incorporate eggs into a hot mixture like this, you've got to temper them, and that means warming them up gradually. Because if I were to just crack them in, they would scramble and the texture would not be smooth. I'm gonna grab a ladle. This always takes some coordination, but I'm gonna add a little bit of the hot mixture as I'm whisking the eggs. And this is essentially gonna gradually cook them while maintaining their smooth texture. My egg mixture is warm to the touch, and that's how I know it's ready to be added back into the pot. So with one hand, I'll drizzle it in, and with the other hand, I'm gonna continue to whisk. Perfect. I'm gonna continue to cook this while it thickens, and in the meantime, I'll grab my spices. I've got cinnamon and nutmeg, and pulling out the fancy vanilla beans. Oh, they smell so good. So I'm gonna slice it in half and just scrape out the pods. And I'm gonna use the blunt end of my knife to scrape them out. And this is gonna add fancy vanilla flavor and really pretty speckles. Okay, I'll scrape this into the filling. A little really goes a long way. And then I don't like to add too many spices, just enough to enhance the pumpkin flavor. So half a teaspoon of cinnamon and a 1/4 teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg. I'll whisk this in. I love being able to see the speckles of the spices and the vanilla bean. My filling is done. I'll grab my crust, which is blind baking in the oven. This is just my go-to pie crust. Flour, sugar, and salt, blended with cold butter, and then formed into a dough with a little apple cider vinegar and ice water. I rolled it out and crimped the edges. This is beautiful. I'm gonna taste the filling before I add it in, just in case I wanna make any adjustments. Yum. There are so many things going on in that filling, and they all just mesh together in the most beautiful way. I'm gonna pour this into the crust, and I'm gonna bake this at 375 degrees for 30 to 40 minutes until the outside is set, but the center is still a little jiggly. That's how you prevent it from cracking. Oh yes, this is perfectly done. It's set around the outside, but it's still a little soft on the inside. I'm gonna let this cool completely, decorate with fresh whipped cream and cinnamon, and then it is gonna be the sweet star of the show. I'm making my famous sticky ribs. They're tender and sweet, and they get finished on the grill with some great char marks. To start, I'll make my spice blend. I'll grab a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. Around here, we like our ribs extra sweet. And I'll spice it up with a teaspoon each of paprika, which will give a little smokiness, onion powder, which just adds loads of flavor, garlic powder, and chili powder, which will add a tiny bit of heat, but just a tiny bit. I'll also add 2 teaspoons of kosher salt and some black pepper. I'll mix this to combine. And now I'll grab my ribs. I've got a rack of baby back ribs, which have come to room temperature. This allows them to get more tender and soak up all the flavors in the seasoning. So I'll rub these all over with my blend. I'll flip them over and cover the other side. These are looking so good. I'm smelling that chili. These are ready for the oven. I'm gonna cover them up with my foil, which will allow them to steam and get really tender. It'll also catch any of the juices that come out of the ribs, because I'm gonna add those juices to the barbecue sauce, and that's gonna add even more flavor. I'll stick these in the oven now at 300 for 2 hours until they're tender, and when they're done, I'll finish them on the grill, and they are gonna be ridiculously good. I just had to finish up my ribs. They've been baking low and slow for 2 hours in their juices, and they smell incredible. I have a good feeling about this. I'm gonna get them out of the foil. Oh yeah, they look excellent. They smell so meaty and smoky and sweet. Okay, I'm gonna transfer these to a cutting board. Now, I don't want to get rid of any of these juices. There is so much flavor in here. I'm gonna pour the juices into my barbecue sauce. And this is just store-bought barbecue sauce, but punching it up with the meat juices makes it 20 times more awesome. Now I'll chop up my ribs. Oh, they're so tender. They are just falling off of the bone. Look at that. It's looking good. Feeling really soft, and when I finish these on the grill, they're gonna get some crisp char marks all over. They'll kind of get a shell. I'm gonna brush this onto my ribs now. This is gonna add even more flavor. And when these go on the grill, the sauce is gonna caramelize on the grill and get crisp and sticky. These are gonna be so good. Okay, let me grab a plate. Now you could finish these in the broiler to get a crisp exterior, but I'm gonna bundle up and get these on the grill. Oh yeah, these are perfect. These are ready to eat. I'll get these off the grill. All right, you guys, come on, let's eat. I am making chicken and dumpling soup featuring my mother-in-law's dumplings, which are in a flavorful broth that heals your soul. I'll get my chicken right into my pot. I've got 1 quartered yellow onion, a carrot cut into chunks. I've got a parsnip, a celery stalk, some smashed garlic cloves, and then my bouquet of herbs, fresh thyme, fresh parsley, and dill. That's the sign of a good Jewish chicken soup, is a lot of dill, and I happen to be Jewish. 2 bay leaves, and a teaspoon of whole black peppercorns. I'll cover this all with water. I'll bring this to a boil and then reduce it to a very low, gentle simmer and let it go uncovered for at least an hour and a half. If the water dips below the contents of the pot, just add a little bit more to compensate. Okay, see you soon. Give me the warmest robe, the fluffiest slippers. Nothing will ever compare to the coziness of homemade stock wafting through the air of the kitchen. I think I could be on the marketing team for chicken soup. That's how much I love it. I'll carefully pour this through a strainer into a heat-safe bowl. Okay, I'll get my pot back on the stove, and then I'll add my soup veggies. So I have thinly sliced carrot, parsnip, celery, onion, the same that were in the stock. Chop up some herbs, more parsley, and more dill. I'll carefully pour in my hot stock. And I'll add 1 tablespoon of kosher salt, but I'm gonna keep the salt near because every pot of chicken soup is different depending on how much water it reduced during the stock making process. You know, you might need a little more, you might need a lot more salt. I'll stir this around and bring it to a boil. Just let these veggies start to soften, get good and soupy and flavorful. This has come to a boil. I'll reduce it to a simmer now and cover it up. And while this simmers, I'll get going on those dumplings. I'll start with 6 tablespoons of butter, along with 3/4 of a cup of water. And I'll heat this up and bring it to a boil. This is boiling. I'll remove it from the heat now and add my dry ingredients, which is 1½ cups of all-purpose flour, 1½ teaspoons of sugar, 1½ teaspoons of kosher salt, and a few passes of nutmeg for that warmth that I crave so much in a dumpling. I'll whisk this to combine into kind of a thick paste. I'll add in 3 eggs and incorporate into a sticky dough. Let's take some elbow grease. Into my simmering soup, I'll drop heaping teaspoonfuls of the mixture for the perfectly sized dumpling. Come on, just like that. I'll keep on scooping my dumplings and then cover this up and let them simmer until they're cooked through, about 15 minutes. And meanwhile, I'll chop up my chicken. My chicken is chopped. I'm ready to put this soup together. Oh, and these dumplings are fluffy and happy. I'll pile this juicy chicken right in. This is my one-way ticket to Cozy Town. Add some black pepper. Oh man, these look awesome. Here I go. Like I always say, a dumpling a day keeps the doctor away.
Today, we are gonna be making fried cheesy pickles. These are probably one of my all-time favorite foods ever. They're crunchy and chewy and cheesy, and they have a crispy, briny pickle in the middle. I'm really excited to make these. So if you're cooking along with me, make sure that you have some oil heating up to 360 degrees, and let's get started. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna make our sauce, get it out of the way. These pickles go great with sriracha ranch. So we're gonna make sriracha ranch. It's really difficult. We're going to combine sriracha and ranch. Use your favorite store-bought ranch dressing, or if you're feeling extra, you should make ranch from scratch. I do that all the time by using like a ranch seasoning mix and Greek yogurt and just mix it in. And then add sriracha to taste. So if you like it really spicy, go all in. If you don't like it as spicy, start with a little bit, mix it up, And then you can give it a taste and add more if you want. And these are gonna be the perfect this sauce is gonna be the perfect cooling match to the hot, crispy fried pickles. And then you have that heat from the sriracha. It's gonna be really delicious. Okay, let me get these out of the way. And now one thing that I always have to remind myself to do is to mix up my sauces before pouring them into my serving bowl. It's just so much cleaner that way. So I'll pour this right in here. That's a good color. This is a nice salmon color sauce. Okay, I'm gonna lose this bowl and then let's grab our pickles. Pickle spears work best here because once you see when we roll them up in the egg roll wrappers, they're just the perfect size and a great shape. They're really snappy, a little bit sweet and sour, and you want to drain them first because you want your pickles to be really dry. Otherwise, once you fry them, they might get a little soggy. No one wants a soggy pickle. But save your pickle brine because this is a really, really good ingredient for salad dressings, for marinades. You can put a little bit in soups and it'll add great acidity. You can even make a cocktail with it if that's your vibe. Now dump your pickles onto a plate that's lined with a paper towel just to help dry off the pickles. I think mine are looking pretty dry. That's such a good color. Okay. Let's get the rest of the ingredients. Egg roll wrappers and Havarti cheese. Okay, so I find my egg roll wrappers in the produce section of the grocery store. If for some reason you can't find store-bought egg roll wrappers, they're really easy to make. They're basically just flour and water rolled really thin. As we're working, I want you to keep them covered, either keep them in their package or cover them with a moist paper towel so that they do not dry out. And then also grab your cheese. This is Havarti cheese, which goes really great with the pickles. Havarti is a little bit funky, it's a little bit caramelly, and that with the sour pickles is so good. Now, to shape these, grab an egg roll wrapper and place it down on your work surface and make like a diamond shape like that. And then grab a pickle and wrap a slice of cheese around the pickle. And then place it right below center on your egg roll wrapper, and then you can fold the egg roll wrapper up, give it a little roll, and then fold the sides in. And before that, I want you to grab your little dish of water and use it as the glue. And this is going to seal the egg rolls shut so that the cheese doesn't leak out while the pickles are frying. So just use your finger to get a nice coating of water all around the edge, and now fold the sides in. And when you make these little folds at the ends here, you're gonna get layers of egg roll wrapper that get really chewy when they're fried. Those are the best bites. And now roll up the pickle and seal, just like that. So it's a cute little package. This part is really fun. One of my favorite parts of cooking is the actual physical building of dishes. So rolling up these pickles is so satisfying to me. Okay, so again, as you're rolling these, make sure that you're sealing them really well because you do not want the cheese to leak out in the fryer. Once you have a few pickles formed, you can get frying. So let's come over here to our fryer. I'm gonna turn up my oil a little bit. You want your oil to be at about 360 degrees and have a candy thermometer clipped on. And I always like deep frying in a cast iron pot because it holds the heat really, really well. And you want to fry these in batches because you do not want to drop the temperature of the oil. If the temperature of the oil gets below 350, your pickles might start tasting a little bit soggy and oily. So make sure that your temperature of the oil is hot enough. If it gets too hot and it starts to smoke, turn down the temperature, and you can also add a little bit more oil just to lower that temperature. Okay, I'm gonna carefully lower in the pickles. And when there are little bubbles sizzling around the edge, that's a good sign. And these only need to fry for a few minutes until they're golden on all sides. I'm really excited to eat these. So these are actually inspired by one of my favorite restaurant items in town in Grand Forks where I live. And the restaurant is called Toasted Frog, and they make these delicious fried pickles. So when I moved here, I found out about them and I was like, I have to recreate them in my house so that I can have endless amounts of them. And so that's where the inspiration comes from. I'm gonna grab my tongs, and as your pickles are frying, you can flip them every so often to make sure that they're getting fried on all sides. And one thing that's awesome about this dish is that you can prep them in advance. So you can shape them, stick them in the refrigerator, and then fry them up right before any party or gathering that you're having, which is awesome because these are best when they're freshly fried. You could also form them and freeze them. And you can freeze them from frozen. Just add a little bit more time onto the frying time. I'm so excited to eat these. It's like, it's a weekend and it's only noon. I think it feels like brunch time, but I could eat these pickles any time of the day. Okay, so these pickles keep flipping over. They have a mind of their own. If they start to do that, hold them over just so that they can get fried on the other side. Okay, these pickles look great. I think that they are ready to come out of the fryer. So the way that you know that they're done is they look golden brown, but also with your tongs, you can feel that they're quite crisp on the outside. So now when you're ready to take them out of the fryer, transfer them to a wire rack. And this is gonna allow any excess oil to drip off, and it's also gonna keep the bottoms crispy. If you don't have a wire rack, you could transfer them to a plate lined with a paper towel, but I prefer a wire rack because it keeps the bottoms crispy. And if it's gonna be a few minutes before you're serving them, you can keep them in a warm oven, but I don't think I'm that patient. I'm gonna cut into them right now. Let me bring them over here, and I'm gonna grab my serving plate. And so the way that I like to serve these is cut them in half and cut them on a bias, and I'll show you why. That way, oh, look at the innards. Oh, it's so steamy. You see the melty cheese and the pickle, and you have a little spoon for the sriracha ranch. Some cheese got left behind on the cutting board. Cut these in half. Isn't that a nice crisp sound when they get cut into like that? Okay. I'm so excited to eat these. And then to serve, you can just stack them up. I don't know, make them really cute. And I think I have to take a bite immediately. I'm gonna get going in my sriracha ranch, and this is gonna cool down the hot cheesy pickle. Here I go. Oh yeah. I love these. I hope you guys are loving these as much as I am. I'm making my taco hot dish. It's out of this world. I've got half of a white onion sizzling in my pan and I'll add a pinch of salt. I'll stir this around and I'll let my onions cook for a few minutes to soften. It's already smelling good in here. As these cook, I'll grab my jalapeno and bell pepper. These are gonna add some nice color to the dish. I'll chop these up too. I'm removing the seeds from my jalapeno. I don't want it to be too spicy. Taco hot dish is totally a Midwest thing. A hot dish is a type of casserole that's a meal in a dish. It's gotta have a protein, a starch, a veggie, and something to bind it all together, like a cream soup, or today I'm using salsa. I love these bright colors. It's already a fiesta. While these continue to cook, I'll grab my other ingredients. I've got my corn chips, which will be the crunchy topping, my mild salsa, which will hold everything together, and taco seasoning, which will add loads of flavor. Taco seasoning is heavy on the cumin, the chili powder, and onion powder, and it's gonna be so good. I usually just buy mine, but you could also make your own. I'll add this to the pan with my veggies. It's gonna start to smell even better in here. I'll stir this around because I want my spices to toast. It'll bring out more flavor. I'm smelling that chili powder. As the spices continue to toast, I'll grab my beef and corn. I love this dish. Everything just gets added to the same pan. It's so easy. I'll break this up with my spoon and brown it all over. My meat is browning nicely now. Okay, I'm ready to add some black beans. Gotta have beans. These have been drained and rinsed. And some corn. Fresh or frozen will both do. I'm using frozen. It'll thaw almost immediately when I pour it in. This will add
little morsels of sweetness. I'll stir this in and allow the heat to heat up the corn and beans. Oh, look at all these fun colors. You could put this into a tortilla and eat it like a taco. But to hot dish it, I'm gonna add something to bind it all together, my salsa. I'll stir it together. I'm almost done. That was so easy, and I barely have to clean anything. That's a win. My filling is set, and now I'm going to add the crunchy topping, corn chips. Heck yeah. They're gonna be gorgeous on top, they're gonna add great crunch, and they're gonna get even more crunchy in the oven. Oh. This is my favorite excuse to buy corn chips at the store. Okay, the hard part is over. I'm gonna stick this in the oven now at 375 for about 20 minutes and let everything come together. This is gonna be the most comforting form of tacos ever. I can smell my taco hot dish. I think it's ready. Oh yeah. This looks awesome. I love the way some of the corn chips soak up the juices. They're crispy on top and a little soft on the bottom. For some colorful pops of freshness, I'm gonna finish this with some crumbled queso fresco. This will add some great salty snaps. I'll also add some sliced radishes. These will add a peppery bite, and they look like confetti on top. A few lime wedges that my guests can squeeze on themselves. This will add a hit of acidity. I love squeezing limes on my tacos. And I'll sprinkle with some chopped fresh cilantro. Okay, I don't think anybody is gonna notice if I steal a chip. This bursts with flavor. I'm making my meatball-stuffed biscuits, which are tender, succulent meatballs encased in flaky biscuits with melty mozzarella. It's all the flavors you could want in life. To get started, I'm gonna combine some milk and breadcrumbs in my big bowl. I'll add a 1/4 cup of whole milk and 1/2 cup of panko breadcrumbs. I'll grab 1/2 of my bunch of parsley. I'll reserve the other 1/2 for sprinkling on top. I've got a pound of ground pork here, and I'll plop this right in. I'll season my pork with a teaspoon of kosher salt, a teaspoon of fennel seeds. I'll add 1/2 teaspoon of dried minced garlic, 1/2 teaspoon of dried minced onion, and 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. Now paprika will add some good smokiness. I'll add a little heat with a couple pinches of crushed red pepper and some black pepper. I'll also add 1 cup of shredded Parmesan. And Parmesan in meatballs adds great dimension and flavor. And then 1 egg will help this all come together. I'm gonna mix it up with my hands, but before I get in there and get my hands all dirty, I'm gonna add a drizzle of olive oil to my pan and get that heating up. And now I'm gonna mix it as quickly as I can. I don't wanna overmix the mixture and get tough meatballs. Now I'm gonna roll it into 1.5 inch balls and transfer them directly to my pan. Just like that. This is what I'm going for. They have this gorgeous brown crust. I'm gonna transfer these to my pan now and then grab my biscuits and mozzarella. I'm using store-bought biscuits today, but they would be so good with homemade biscuits. And I've also gotten some slices of mozzarella that are gonna add great meltiness to these. I'll lay out all my biscuits. And I'll get everything ready before I start forming. I'll take 1 biscuit and I'll flatten it slightly with my fingers so that it's big enough to go all the way around the meatball. I'm gonna rip up a couple pieces of cheese and I'll place them in the center. And then I'll take a meatball and then stretch the ends of the biscuit dough to encase the meatball in the cheese, just like making a little dumpling. And I'll place it seam side down right into my pan. This is a 9x9 baking pan. All right, and I'll continue forming these. These are cozy and nestled in their pan. I'm gonna bake these at 375 for 30 minutes until they're golden. Oh, yeah. I love how they get puffy and just fill up the pan. I'm gonna make these look even better now by topping them with garlic butter. I made this easily with butter, olive oil, garlic, and crushed red pepper, and I warmed it in my pan, and now I'm gonna pour it all over the top. These are dangerous. I'll use a brush to get even distribution of the garlic butter. I'm gonna stick it back in the oven for a few minutes, but before I do that, I'm gonna sprinkle with a little bit more Parmesan cheese. And a few pinches of flaky salt. And this will go back in the oven to allow that garlic butter to soak right in. While this finishes up, I'll chop up some fresh parsley. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to eat these. I'm gonna grab my serving plate. Here I go. Yes. I'll finish these with a sprinkle of parsley.